Okay, guys, we're live. Welcome. Okay, as agreed, we'd introduce ourselves. So I'm Granville Campbell. I'm from South Africa, Johannesburg. I've been a member of Twin Flames Universe for probably just okay, guys, we're live. Half years. Welcome.
I'll go next. My name is Kalita Lloyd. I am a new face to this space of talking about this topic. I live in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I'm really glad for this space, just to say an full introduction. So I'll be participating, but listening at the same time to just make sure that I feed into the energy that was already present.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Deji here in New York. I've been a fan, excuse me. I've been a part of Twin Flames universe since the beginning of this year, and yeah, that's it.
Hey everyone, I'm Doreen, and I've been in TFAS for about a year right now, and I live in France.
Hi, I'm Daniel.
I'm Deanna.
We know from our videos, we're Twin Flames and Harmonious Union through Twin Flames Universe and Unionists.
Yeah.
And really happy to be here.
Support and hold space for this discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys. So today's conversation is a continuation of our chat that started a week ago around the Church of Union sermon around why Black Lives Matter. And one of the requests and kind of the thing that's needed possibly in our community is just to continue the conversation, to bring the maximum healing to anything that we can shed light on around the subject. And I think Kalita mentioned something around wanting to explore the topic of liberation. I want to just also touch on something that Jeff and Shalia mentioned around heritage in the Church of Union sermon. And I think there was another thing, I'm not sure if it was Yoreen or Kalita that also brought up another topic around the Civil War and what actually transpired there. So I'm gonna open it up for anybody to comment freely as they feel led to do it. And yeah, we'll just take the conversation from there and follow comments as well in the live stream to see if anybody has any questions or if they'd like to add anything to the conversation. Okay, can I turn the floor over to somebody else now?
Well, I'll just start because I just probably want to just observe what I saw from the last interaction and just really affirm what this space is. And so from the last interaction that you all had and discussion, I just love the energy of every single person because it just showed the dynamics and the intricacies of what living out a life in a Black body, if you will, that is complex and has so many different layers. And so I love the energy that everyone brought and just really providing this space. And so I hope that this can be something that is beneficial to not only us, but also the larger community. So I would love to make sure we have that as a goal.
Perfect, thank you. So one of the things that came up in the sermon for me that was quite fitting was the conversation around heritage. And I think one of the things that has always been a challenge for me in certain respects is, do I avoid owning my heritage because of the fact that it actually comes attached with certain meaning and certain hurt from the past? Or do I incorporate that and say, well, actually, that's the full me, and there were lessons to be learned from that. And, you know, that ancestry kind of carries with it some things that actually sits in your genetic code, which kind of makes you show up in a certain way. So one of the things that I found was, yes, there's kind of pain in the past, but there's also great lessons in the past, and there's great people in the past, and there's great kind of fighters in the past. And there's people that have owned power or taken power or just kind of stood up to power in the past in that heritage. And it kind of just, it flows through in kind of other generations. And I think we need to also just own that there is strength in that heritage as well.
It's interesting that you brought this up, because this week I've been listening to music, like, you know, as usual, on Spotify, for example, and, you know, playing my music on random. And really, I had a lot of music from Black people, and from all, you know, eras of music, I guess. And so it really made me think and question the heritage that Black people have left us in the last centuries. And yeah, I think it's really good that you opened up the question. And for me, it makes me ask myself, how do I recognize my heritage daily? How do I implement it in my life? How much it impacts my life, you know? And yeah, I feel like it was a message from God to say that I had a lot of people to look up to in our history, and a lot of people that could be examples of you know, the Black community, and help me heal along the way, you know.
Yeah, and I think it is important to remember that there's a heritage across all people, and everything that has transpired is not always only based on animosity. And sometimes we forget that. We forget that sometimes our humanity was shown through in other ways. And one of the things that came up that Khalida mentioned was around the message that Jeff and Shalia put out about the Civil War, and how it was white people fighting other white people about slavery. So there's always been solidarity in a measure. And we also need to remember that that has been there. There hasn't only been animosity.
Granville, you said my name, but I think Yoreen is who pointed it out, and I disagree. And so I'll let Yoreen start with her thoughts, and then I'll come in.
Yeah, when I saw Jeff and Shalia posted something about the Civil War, and explained that what it was exactly, and it was white people from the north of the United States fighting with white people from the south about whether to abolish slavery or not. And yeah, they reminded us that it was white people fighting white people on certain questions, And so it has always been like a question of solidarity between the different cultures and between white people and Black people. And I think it's interesting because a lot of Black people hold up this hatred and anger at the moment against white people, saying that they don't feel, I think the problem is that they don't feel supported in their fights. And they don't feel like they have a voice, they don't feel like they have power. And yeah, and it's really important for white people to understand that it's as much a question for themselves than for Black people. It's not only a matter of Black people fighting for their rights, it's a matter of all levels of society, like making the choice to change. And that's why I'm really grateful for this live discussion, because it fills a space where Black people have been asking to be heard for long and for years now. So yeah, what do you think about that?
So I think it's definitely true and accurate. For me, when I read the post in particular, I go to like history, and I go to like knowing the history, and that's like so important towards this healing process of coming to reconciliation. Is we've got to understand where history has lied. And so, yes, I think the beautiful point is that it was basically white Americans in a tougher war of the decision of will we abolish slavery and will slavery be still maintained in America. But I think everyone doesn't believe that narrative of history. And we're still at a space where we're not just all on the same page. So everyone doesn't think that the Civil War was even a fight over slavery. And so sometimes we have to even like start there of, okay, are we even at the same consciousness or even on the same practical understanding of what history was? Because if we all go back into our history lessons in school, we didn't learn the specifics of the Civil War. We did not learn what exactly why was being fought, who was being fought, and the result of it. And I think we have to acknowledge that and acknowledge that our history hasn't been very fair and truthful to us in terms of who has told it. And so I think we have to do a little extra digging as Black people, as just Americans, as people on this earth, as humanity, to really seek out history and understand it so that we can frame our levels of healing and where we do need to heal. So.
Yeah, I like what you're saying in terms of the narrative that was told, because there's always a narrative, and the narrative is generally controlled by the people in power. So you don't always know what the actual detail is. And it is important to ask questions. It is important to ask questions about what happened and ask the question of, can I believe that given how people behave? Can I believe that given what I'm seeing around me? Can I believe that given what I'm hearing around me? Because the narrative is controlled. It always is controlled. So I think our primary purpose is probably to ask as many questions as we can, because it then informs and gives us an informed opinion. And even if that opinion is informed by our questions only, it is better informed than just reading a narrative. Does anybody have anything to add around that?
It's interesting that Khalida, or sorry, Deji. It's interesting that Khalida mentioned the education, because I remember being in Guadeloupe, the French Caribbean, having a book, a history book, like specifically made for us, and speaking about Black history in Black communities. And it was so amazing because like we had like people teaching Black studies in universities, coming to the island, really like, you know, people from the higher education. And when I moved in continental Europe, I was in a really like prestigious school at first, and I was speaking with doctorates, and they told me that they never really had an education about colonization or an education about Black people. They didn't have that history book. They had just like two paragraphs about slavery in their history book, like the national history book. And I think it really struck me that you know, islands with Black communities had to ask for a specific like history book for them to learn about their own history. And that was different from the national history book. So I think we have a purpose and in keeping the discussion alive and bringing that to the education, whether it be in the United States or in Europe, because most of the ignorant comments that I've experienced with people about history come from a lack of knowledge, and not just from white people, you know, just, you know, all people. It's just about education, and it's just important to invest in that in our own states.
Going off of what Granville and Khalida said about, you know, people in power controlling the narrative. You know, growing up in school, they only teach you certain things because that's completely out of their control. You know, when I was younger, I didn't know exactly what Christopher Columbus did. In case you guys didn't, wait, you guys know about Christopher Columbus, correct? Yes, shake your head, nod. Okay, good. So, so yeah, what I was told in school is that this man came to the Americas, and that's all I know. Like, oh, it's Christopher Columbus Day, no school, yay. But then as you grow up, you hear, I don't know if it was common knowledge, maybe other people knew that, and I didn't. I did not know that he enslaved indigenous people and slaughtered them. I did not know that. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? Why are we celebrating this? And now it's now no longer Columbus Day, it's called Indigenous Day because he enslaved indigenous people. So, yeah.
Well, as they say, every day is a school day. That's something that's kind of a thing that I've found out the first time right now.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Wow, see?
No,
Well, you didn't know what part.
Pardon?
You didn't know what part.
Yeah, I didn't know a part of it. I mean, we've always known Christopher Columbus as this great explorer, but
Right.
there was never this part of actually enslaving people.
So there's a meme, you know, the internet has no, you know,
No filter.
Right, no filter for the internet. But there's a meme of, dang, I just lost his name. B.I.G., Notorious B.I.G. So his real name is Christopher Wallace. And so the meme is Christopher Columbus who? The only Christopher I know is Christopher Wallace. Because I'm just such fans of, you know, hip hop and R&B and, you know, all that stuff and things. But that's something part of history, right? that we haven't been able to learn until like recent years. And when I say learn, I mean like is in mainstream consciousness. And even sometimes not, right? Like Granville's like, I just learned this today. But it's also been said that Christopher Columbus had some enslaved slaves on that ship when he rolled in, discovering the new land as well. And so the history is deep, y'all. And it has layers and layers that we have to do the intentionality to just discover and be rooted in it so that we don't repeat it, really, is like the one biggest thing. But yeah.
You know, what this makes me think about is the destroying of statues of explorers and important people of history. And you had that in the United States, but we also had that in France during the protests. And the first thing that our president did was patronizing people for being outside. It was Black Lives Matter, but being outside basically and destroying statues. And it's just another example of, you know, this one-sided narrative of the majority of the population, which doesn't help people understanding why the statues were destroyed in the first place. And it's not something to, you know, I'm not advocating like destroying statues, but you know, it made a point during that in the protest, and I hope people will have the curiosity to dig deep and understand why people did that all over the world, not just in a few cities in North America or something.
In my opinion, I'm going to say that maybe some people were just comfortable in their own knowledge and not being able to accept the reality of what these quote unquote founding fathers were, that they were actually slave owners. And I guess like that's just their way of not, well, some people's way of not accepting that. But people who are accepting it are knocking it down. So yeah, that's just how I see it.
So one of the questions that has come up from the people following our conversation is from Lisi saying, how can the unionist community or the twin flame community play a new role in the world in supporting this healing? And I think it ties back nicely to our conversation around, actually, let's dig deep. Let's dig deep. Let's understand where we come from so that we don't repeat those mistakes of the past. But let's also be open to the conversation, which we are now demonstrating in a very cool way, that actually it doesn't have to be an emotionally charged conversation. It's about connecting and getting real about things. And actually at the end of the day going, well, oh, wow, that's a new piece of information. Maybe I should assimilate that a little bit so that I can actually ask the next informed question.
So I like that question. Is it Leslie? Lisi, sorry.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do with not sitting in the things that paralyze us. And so the things that we learn, which is we don't want to sit in shame, we don't want to sit in guilt, because God wouldn't have it for us to be that way. And so I think when we start to have conversations about race and racism and what white privilege means and white supremacy, and we start saying these kind of heavy words, if you will, levels of shame and guilt can come on. And that's not what we need, right? That's not what we need to find a solution in order to move forward. And so when I think the biggest part is recognizing if that is happening for you, right? If recognizing that, just hearing that history about Christopher Columbus and what that meant for you, if that did something to your body, and it did something in your mind and your heart, that don't ignore that. That's something where healing is available for you. And it's, doing the mirror exercise and doing those types of things. But I think that's where this community can really help in this consciousness, is that when we do have these conversations, whatever it does bring up for you, that you heal it, so that you can then help others to walk in the conversation, walk in the learning and the understanding, to then show up differently in your spheres of influence and where you're purpose driven and all those different things.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think one of the quality of this community and the Church of Union is demonstrating that you can take subjects that are uncomfortable for most people and heal there. And so it's just a matter of doing that with Black Lives Matter as well. And it's a big healing. So I don't know how much time it's going to take, but just the fact of keeping the momentum going, the discussion going, is going to heal that eventually, because we have a tendency as humans to avoid what is uncomfortable for us. But the next nugget, the next light, the next step is always in that uncomfortable place. If there is one thing to remember about this community and the mirror exercise, it's that. And so we're not used to speak about these things, but yeah, it can change, and we have the power to change that. And so yeah, it's just involving everyone in the discussion is gonna do big things. It's already changing a lot of things. When I wrote something about healing racism from the inside out a few weeks ago, and it was all about every mirror exercise that I did changed something in my reality, because this is something that the world really needs. And so everything that you heal is going to manifest fast. So yeah, let's just heal this together. And yeah, keeping the discussion going, basically.
Yeah, I think the healing is important, and sometimes the healing it doesn't look pretty, but also it doesn't have to look nasty. It does not have to look nasty. And yes, it's sometimes difficult to have that conversation, but the more difficult thing is to sit in that energy of stewing in something where you don't need to stew. Sometimes I feel like it's a lot more comfortable to sit silent than to stand up and voice an opinion that's not popular and that's not commonly accepted. And one of the things that I have actually recently started doing was saying, well, actually, guys, whether it's in a conversation, joking about anything that kind of touches on making a joke about somebody else's difference, to me is a challenge. So it's not enough for me when you say, I am not that. You kind of almost have to be actively anti that. And that anti that doesn't mean be militant, chuck somebody out the door or off the balcony or whatever. It's literally saying, well, actually, I don't find that funny. I don't think that's a joke. Do you understand that you are joking about somebody's almost intrinsic value? And if we start to have that kind of conversation, it starts to make people aware, well, actually, our uniqueness makes us amazing. Let's celebrate it. Let's not treat it as a joke. We don't all have to be the same, and we don't all have to be equal. We are unique. And our uniqueness is what completes the picture and makes us who we are. Okay, was that a little bit too deep for everybody?
Not necessarily, no.
Oh, good, Granville. It's good. Drop the mic.
Boom. Because yeah, I think we chase this stupid equality thing, and it's not about equality. It's about actually just celebrating humanity, celebrating our beingness.
Yeah.
I think my opinion, when you say like when it comes to jokes about someone else's, I'm sorry, what was the word you used, Granville? Someone else's what?
Intrinsic value, their difference, the thing that makes them unique.
Yeah, I think that is just an old pattern that was just okay in the past, because there are some comedians who have put out material like that to be funny. It wasn't with ill intentions, but it was just something that people know, and they just chose to look at it as a joke in a way, because it's not that's what they feel is not the same as in that old times in a way. Like I can remember watching old African American comedies from like the 90s, like Martin or Living Single, and these shows gave some not so funny situations that would be considered funny now, that would actually get them kicked off the air, but back then people saw it as a joke. Yeah, that's just my opinion on that in a way.
I think when you vibe up, and it's not just us when we do the mirror exercise, it's the whole community, because we're making the planet vibe up with us. The sensitivity of people is going to be accentuated. And so what was okay in the past might not be okay anymore today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's just that. And I want to ask a question. I'm going to be the devil's advocate there, but what do you say to someone who says like, you cannot joke about anything anymore today, or worse, like put up the freedom of speech, to say that he has a right to joke about racist things, or the intrinsic values of people?
Ooh.
Okay, so that was a mic drop question. So yeah, you know what? I think we all like a good joke. We absolutely all like a good joke. And sometimes a good joke also still touches on a sensitive spot, though. And we have to be sensitive to the sensitivities. I like to laugh, but I also need to be sensitive that actually somebody in my company may not appreciate that. So I'm not saying don't make a joke. I'm not saying don't be free in your speech. I'm saying let's be conscious and cognizant of each other. Let's actually have conscious relationships that actually allows people to live in their value and experience their value.
That was good, Granville. That was good. And so just to kind of put it in layman's terms, what you would tell the person is what value does that give for you to just continue to assert your joke at the expense of someone else? Like, what is that doing for you? Because you probably need healing there if it's doing anything for you in particular. And so I think it's really, a lot of this work is inviting people to a new level of thinking and being and consciousness. And you appreciate those questions. You're like, well, it's my First Amendment right to say what I want to say. It is your First Amendment right. But what is that doing for you and the larger humanity? And maybe they're not even there about thinking about them personally and loving themselves personally, right? And maybe they're not even there about thinking about other humanity. But at least whatever you say to them plants a seed that God will water, the Holy Spirit will water, and keep it moving. But, and the other thing too, I would say is don't feel the pressure, like whoever you are, black, white, and all the above. Don't ever feel the pressure to like heal somebody else, right? Like you say whatever's on your heart and whatever you're led to, but like don't go dying, don't go to the grave with whatever you want to express to them if they're not receiving it, right? And so that's the other thing I would say in this work is just stay within your own self so that you don't feel that you have to like bring somebody else along. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo that and say, you know, the adage about leading the horse to water and forcing it to drink. There are some stubborn horses out there. You're going to be breaking your back.
But
And what I want to say about that too is those horses will be like people that you know and that you are very close to and can be your family members. And so I think it's a very robust place. I call them gifts of healing to be in, right? Like, because they'll be the people who you're like, what? You think this way? Like, you really believe this? You feel this way? And it'll challenge you and move you further. But you're in their life for whatever reason, and be in that and go with it. But
I like that because it encourages communication with people without them feeling censored about you not feeling okay with their joke or their ideas and opinions, and without you hurting yourself while trying to communicate your feelings.
So the thing that I read the other day, which I thought was quite fitting, was don't break somebody else in order to heal yourself. And conversely, don't break yourself in order to heal. Don't break yourself in order to heal another person either.
that's so good. Say that again. Say that again, Graham.
again. So don't break someone else in order to heal yourself.
Mm.
Also, don't break yourself in order to heal someone else.
This is so important. Like, you know, people want to have retaliation for the past hurts of the Black community, and I'm like, that's not how we are gonna, you know, that's not how it's gonna work. Our new society is gonna be based on communication and balance, not on polarizing the cultures and communities. And so we have to stop, and I know where it comes from. My family is really like an example of being heard this way and trying to say, okay, now this is maybe our islands or the Native Americans islands, and white people aren't allowed in here, or it's not their home. But that's not what's going to change the society. even more today because of globalization. You can't say that the home of someone pertains to their complexion, to their skin color. So the only reasonable thing and the truly like important, impactful thing to do is heal and have communication between the communities.
Yeah, I think for us as the unionism group, as the group leading the conversation around why Black Lives Matter, I think the conversation is very important. And I think it's also very healing because actually everything's not emotionally charged. Some things are just as simple as a chat. Some things are just as simple as a, let's clear up the stupid misunderstanding. That's not where I was at. That's not what I was doing. This is actually the intention of my conversation or my statement or things like that. And because we sometimes take it from the space of the cloud that we are under, we don't allow for the person's true intention to come through. And we also need to make allowance for actually that there is a true intention that we're possibly not seeing. So one of the other comments that came through was also from Caroline saying, it's also said that the mark of a true shaman or teacher is the ability to make you laugh. And the fun thing I've always found is that it's so much more fun to laugh at myself than have everybody laughing at me. So yeah, I do have a bit of a comedic streak, and one of the things that I laughed about in my coaching session with Daniel and Deanna was when she said to me, "You have a wonderful divine quality of stubbornness." So yeah, you know, it's a thing. I don't think if you can't laugh at yourself, you kind of spend life very unhappy because everything is a serious moment. And sometimes, yes, these conversations are serious. But at the same time, they don't have to be so serious that we cannot take a learning from it, and we cannot take a lesson from it, and we cannot take a healing from it.
Yeah, I think eventually it's a balanced state between respecting the sensitivity of each people in the discussion and also respecting your own energy, or, you know, bringing a new energy to an old discussion, like brushing it up, like making us laugh, like making jokes, being open, removing the hurt from the discussion. Whatever needs to be added to the discussion for everyone to feel good in a compassionate way, we can do, because we are human and we have the complexity of emotions that allows us to bring the discussion wherever we want to bring it. So yeah, let's just bring it. If it's in a fun way, well, let's bring it. And if it's in a serious way, let's bring it as well. You know.
Yeah, I think we're getting some really good feedback on the conversation. So yeah, I think we're probably going to carry on for possibly 5 more minutes or so, unless you guys want to extend it a little bit further. I think we've touched on quite deep stuff in either a serious or joking or whatever way. But I think we've accomplished quite a nice objective today. And so I also don't want us to push ourselves too far too quickly.
Yeah, I think we've given some good nuggets to chew on. But I would love for Daniel and Deanna to just talk And so maybe some of your takeaways from our time today, or?
Yeah, I was just about to unmute myself. You have good intuition there. I just wanted to thank you guys because you actually offered us healing. When you were talking about like guilt is not the way, shame is not the way, like I realized where I feel my part in this healing is well, first showing up and holding space and learning, because I didn't know that about Christopher Columbus either. And like shame and guilt did come up when you said that, but then you also, in addition to knowledge, you offered the healing too. You said, you know, just use the mirror exercise and love yourself there, because that is like our side of the fence and our healing. So thank you very much.
Yeah. It just it feels really good to be able to listen and be present. And the biggest question that's been on my heart, and maybe no one wants to offer feedback, is I'm always curious, like, how do you know, like, when a white person, you can feel that they're truly being supportive, right? Offering a presence that, like, I can trust this person. Because of course we're all sensitive. I'm sure, like, there are times when you're like, I don't know, could be frustrated someone's not meeting you where you'd like to be met. And I think a growing I'd like to see is that white people know how to be open, or how to really be a healing presence. Yeah. If anyone has any thoughts or on that.
So I obviously that's another mic drop question.
Yes. I know that might be next week's.
Yeah, you know what? I like the question. I think it's quite a deep question, and even in that the deepness of the question encourages a level of healing, because it takes you stepping back and looking at it and going, well, actually, what do I want? And what do I need? And when am I clear that my trauma is not misleading me in this interaction? As opposed to, this is genuine, it feels good. I don't expect this person to now put me on their shoulders, but the fact that they're standing next to me feels really good. And you can tell the difference between somebody standing next to you in solidarity and power and somebody standing next to you for the appearance of it. I can always feel that energy.
It's a really deep. It's a really deep question, but I have to agree with Granville here. From my experience, it's always about the energy of the person that is in front of you. So yeah, that's just what I want to say.
That was good, Granville. I think energy is important, and so you have to know your own energy that you're giving off, and know your own heart space of how you're coming to a conversation, how you're interacting with somebody. Why do you want to befriend someone? What are your motives, right? And I think you know that. But I think the way I feel it is that the person is generally interested in what I'm interested in, right? And, you know, has some type of connection with me as a person and not me as not a person. And so, you know, I like things just like you, and I like to eat just like you. And I like to make money just like you. Like, you know, I want to do like all these things just like you. And so what can you do to connect with me as a person? And I can always feel that energy. And I can always feel when that energy is not so much, that you're really just connecting with me to get, I don't know, information, to get some facts about Christopher Columbus. And then keep it moving. And then I think the other layer is, once that connection is made, what are you doing to cultivate that connection? You know, what are you doing to continue to grow in that? Yeah, and so that's what I'll say. But yes, definitely mic drop type of question.
Yeah, I pretty much Granville said it all. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Awesome, guys. Yeah, I think we've walked quite a path tonight. So yeah, if there's any concluding comments or anything like that, let's do that, and then we'll wind up.
It feels complete to like end, but
Yeah. I think we've accomplished quite a bit tonight.
tonight for you.
Oh, yeah, it's 3 o'clock
Well,
over here.
yes. For me, it's literally 8 minutes to 10 p.m. So yeah.
Well, I guess one closing comment is thank you for whoever's in the chat and whoever is engaging and whoever is asking questions. And so I think what's important about this space is that whatever you have questions about, that you're able to ask it. I think that's what's going to be the most fruitful. So just thank you for whoever is there listening and whoever's going to listen later as well.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to the team. Anybody else? Okay, so I think we've reached that point. So I'm gonna say thank you to all of you for your engagement in this conversation, and I'm gonna say good night.
See you all next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.